the basement anymore. They just absolutely refused. They either you fire me or, you go get it yourself. So, I went down there, right? No problem the first time. The second time I went down there, and all of a sudden it went like ice chilly, and it was very dimly lit in the warehouse downstairs, poorly lit. And then I smelled lilac so strong it was nauseating. And then I walk, if anything, I should have smelt the sewer because the basement actually went underneath the main street a little ways. The smell went away. I didn't think anything of it. And then maybe a few weeks later, I was down there. I was down there by myself, and somebody tapped me so hard on the shoulder, it kind of like left a little mark on my back of my shoulder blade. And I swung around because I was actually going to hit the person, whoever did it. Guess what? Nobody.
Oh, no.
Absolutely nobody there. Nobody. Then I started thinking, wow.
I don't think I would ever go back in that basement again. Did you ever go down there again?
I had to. But, I didn't have that problem anymore. But then all of a sudden I'd be, down there because I also did camera repair. I was a technician too, besides being the general manager. I did everything. And sometimes I'd be down there, working on digital cameras, cleaning the sensors, late at night when there's no dust. And I'd be down there, and in the bottom, or on the bottom floor, there was a big staircase that went upstairs to the offices. And it had a couple stories left. It originally was like 8 or 9 story building, but in the 60s, they took a couple stories off because it was unsafe, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd be in my office working on these cameras like at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. And I'm in my little cubby hole, right? And I would hear footsteps going up the stairs. Now, it's a big kind of, hotel type of stairs. They go up and they curve and do, fancy thing. And I going, wow, that's kind of strange. The owners must be here. Then I realized that I double locked the back door, and the front door, deadbolted it so there's no way anybody can get in. But I'd ran out there, and there was absolutely nobody there, Paul. Absolutely nobody there. This kept going on, but it started getting worse. All of a sudden, I'd start hearing, a week or two later, I'd be down there late at night. Instead of hearing one person walking up the stairs, I'd hear like multiple people walking. And then it got so bad, I heard muffled talking, men and women. And when that happened, I told the owner, I said, I worked here a long time. I can't do it anymore. I mean, it scared me. I mean, I was the first one to get out when we closed at 6 o'clock, I was at that door letting the employees out, and I was right out behind them. But I couldn't take it anymore.
I am out.
And then...
No, I understand that. I totally understand. I mean, I have not had that type of an experience where, I've heard things or things like that. I have worked in... I remember one of my jobs when they had a basement type thing too, but it was a really old building and the ceilings were so low. Like walking through there, it's like your head almost would touch the top of the ceiling. And I just remember going down there sometimes, and I would be freaked out as well. But I never heard anything. But I can just imagine being in that kind of a setting. If I would have heard something, or if I would have, oh my gosh. I'm surprised that you didn't, like, I would have run. Like, I would have ran.
Well, my imagination, I kept saying it's my imagination and just overreacting. But, I did do a search and found out, there was a couple people that were actually shot in the bar over the period of time when it was a bar down in the basement. And then I found out there was a bunch of prostitutes for all those years. One prostitute was all, with a knife all cut up and killed, cut up in pieces and all that stuff. And then you start thinking, wow, what am I into? That's when I,
right.
2 things in my life I ran into that I can't explain. Nobody can tell me it didn't happen. It was that, and then another experience I had with a friend of mine up in the Canadian Rockies. And I don't really want to go into it, but I can honestly tell you, they are Bigfoot. And, if you see one, then you know that they do exist. Again, with Ghost, I don't know if it's a replay of what happened. I've talked to a couple mediums I've had on my show, but Anytime you get like physical pain from, a spirit or something like that, I was told that means that they're not the friendly type of spirits or ghost.
I would assume. I would so assume that, because I'd be like, yeah, no, you're not Casper.
No.
You don't seem to have good intentions here.
Well, that's why I was asking you on some of these old sets, like in the prison. How many people die in a prison? They get
right.
they get shanked or worse. And all the weird things that go on in the prison. Of anything of unhappiness, and pain and suffering,
Right.
is going to be in a prison. So that's why I was kind of curious.
Well, I recently shot, and this is the prison thing, absolutely, but even more than that. Like, I recently shot. It's actually coming out. It should be out here in a little bit. It's a film called Tuscaloosa. But I played a mental ward patient. I had such a good time. But it was set like in the 1970s, and they shot in this mental institution. And that is what really can start to make me go, okay, I need to make sure there's people around on set. Because when you're shooting in these really old hospitals, and that have multiple floors, and everything's antique, and you want to talk about some scary corridors and winding staircases and things like that, where I don't know, it's very creepy. Especially considering some of the things that, back in the day in the mental hospitals and the things that they would be doing to people.
Oh, yeah, like electrocuting them?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, and the electrocution type stuff, but even oh gosh, I mean, we make jokes about it in current society, like, oh, you need a lobotomy, but they were really doing that kind of stuff. It's frightening stuff, and I don't know. I just I think about your stories, and I think about, oh my gosh, walking around on some of these sets with like I was saying, the mental ward and stuff like that. That starts to.
But that's when
I don't ever want to be on set alone.
That would be almost worse than being in a prison or anything, because the pain and suffering that went on, especially the turn of the century of these mental wards.
Yeah.
I mean, basically they were tortured. I mean, and most of them didn't become sane after. They became more insane because the way they were treated. I mean, hey, if the person was screaming, the first thing they did is, okay, we're going to electrocute you till you simmer down. If you don't simmer down, we're going to cut part of your brain out, Horrible. I mean, the torture went on, I mean, some of them, I had a medium on recently, and she, went through one of the, God, I can't remember what state, but one of the notorious bad mental institutions. And she was saying she was getting all kinds of, pain and misery coming to her from, people. Or spirits, I should say.
No, it makes sense. It would make sense to me totally that something like that would be. It's. I'm not a medium or anything like that, but I'm assuming there's something that we all can pick up on in certain ways. Just the energy of places and things like that. Yeah. Why is it that sometimes, like, if I'm on a set in the mental ward, why do I get so creeped out? What's going on there? What's happening with that is what I always think.
Oh yeah, that would that would scare me on some of those sets. I mean, oh wow. So you just did a movie here just recently that's coming out. What did you do in that movie? What part did you play?
I actually played. My character's name is Earl, and I have a big smile on my face because I really, really had fun playing Earl, and. The film is called Tuscaloosa. I don't know if you have watched that Netflix TV show called Stranger Things.
No, I have not. No.
Yeah, and Stranger Things, one of the actresses, her character name on there is Nancy, and she's who I worked with on Tuscaloosa. she is one of the other mental ward patients. She's actually she's the lead character in the movie. And I had a good time because my character of Earl, he is a lifelong mental ward institute patient. He's got some serious issues going on, but what I loved about playing him is kind of crazy, over the top, antics of being. I don't know. There's something so freeing about being. What's the word I'm looking for? Able to just do whatever you want, as crazy as it is. Meaning, crawling across the floor and running away from the nurses, and I don't know, just not having to be necessarily quote unquote normal. I had a really good time with it. But yeah, there's some moments in the film that are really they do put a little bit of a spotlight on what was going on at that. It was set in the 1970s, but they point a little bit of a spotlight on some of the mental ward things that were going on. Just with tying people down and just some of the sad things that would happen. My character, I was so bummed actually. Because it would have been a fun, interesting. I actually really appreciate as an actor doing kind of like what you were talking about, where it's not quite so much computer generated, but it's working with one of the characters. They changed it. It was supposed to be my character. There's a fan. And he's sitting at one of the desks, and he just keeps looking at this fan. And he takes his finger, and he slowly sticks his finger in this huge, fan. And you can imagine what that would do to somebody's finger.
What you mean? What finger?
Like his index finger.
Yeah, you mean he had an index finger?
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, he had an index finger, and then. But what I appreciate so much as an actor is. They didn't do any of that digitally. They worked with, a special effects artist who works with, clay and fake blood and all that kind of stuff to make this all happen without having to use special digital effects. So some of that gore and everything was, it's fun to see that process happen, and it's cool to work with people that have that capability of kind of working with prosthetics and the makeup and things like that.
I think, from the standpoint, how do you call it? Stargate. Remember the TV show Stargate? That's when actually, that's what I was reading. That's when really the digital effects really started improving. During that time frame, some of the stuff they did was way ahead of its time, and that's like some of the stuff you see like in Walking Dead, where they're shooting the zombie or cutting the zombie's head off, and all this blood is flying. I mean, you can still tell it's fake, but I mean, to me, it's a little bit too graphic. But I kind of like it where it looks more real, and not so hyped up, type of situation. But I guess that's what people. I guess that's what people like. They like seeing blood and guts and coming out of a zombie. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm more intrigued by the process, I guess, behind it than because I have to tell you, I get squeamish really easy. I definitely get squeamish. I'd be that guy that would pass out if I saw too much blood and guts. I would definitely probably throw up and pass out, and I'd be no help for anybody that needs help with the zombie apocalypse.
Oh yeah. So you haven't done any zombie type movies, I take it?
Actually, yes, I have. I've done some zombie things here and there. Actually, there's a couple of them that you can, if people, I've done a couple you can see on YouTube, too. There's a really fun zombie one where it's called After Day Z, which is loosely based on a video game, After Day Z, where there's quite a bit of zombies and shooting, kind of that type of a video game. But I play a guy who you never really know if I get caught by the zombies or not, but I basically through the whole short film,